Pharaoh who ruled Egypt for thousands of years, continued to rule, but now Muslims are finally coming to power again in this endless caliphate who took Egypt away from them forever. This story was the story of the conquest of Egypt. It's going to be very interesting because no one has explained it till date. Wait, Caliph was a big problem here. Umar did not want the Muslims' attack on Egypt. It was done because of the invasion of Egypt. A long time ago there was a discussion about the caliphate of the Muslims. There was great trouble, there was such a disease, who killed 25,000 soldiers of the Muslim army. Martyred, and only soldiers, not only this, but all the elders of the Muslims generals also died from this disease. After which Caliph Umar himself controlled the situation. Muslim army from Medina went to and met the Muslims there. The new army chief, Amr bin A, who presented Hazrat Umar with a new vision. Idea came up with a new plan that now we have to slow down. Instead of being Egypt, the country of the pharaohs, we should go to one side, but Hazrat Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, said about this. I was a little confused that right now such a large army has been martyred by this disease. And with only a small army, Egypt will be very difficult to conquer. He went, and Hazrat Umar was also in danger from him. So that the army of Muslims does not come to Egypt, move towards them and attack them from behind. The empire attacks, but the army chief remains immortal, without hope, even after all this in front of Hazrat Umar. Did you stick to your plan or not? We must go to Egypt at all costs. Because before the adoption of Amr bin's Islam, he was a very rich merchant of Makkah, and because of his business he frequents. If there was a continuous movement towards Egypt, now they know this very well, that the people of Egypt were before the Muslims, can never bear their repetition. Hazrat Umar agreed to his request, allowed them to invade Egypt, but on one condition, that you go to Egypt. Go away, but if I intend, if it changes, you will have to take your whole army with you. He will have to come back. After hearing this, immortal Banas, he ordered the army to be ready only. Capital of Egypt with an army of 4,000. Amr bin left for no at the same time. Egypt. As Misr and Hazrat Umar went to Medina, Hazrat Umar stayed in this journey. Just kept thinking about Egypt. As soon as Hazrat Umar reached Medina, all the elders called a meeting of the companions, and he was asked about Egypt. He was asked about Egypt. Tell us what we should do, on which Hazrat Uthman and the rest of the companions said clearly, let's stop the army heading to Egypt. It should be presented to the chief minister of the army. After hearing everyone's words, finally Hazrat Umar, R.A., decided and wrote a letter to Amr bin sent, in which Hazrat Umar told his army commander, as soon as a clear order was given, receive this letter from me with your whole army. Come back with it, but if you guys first have already crossed the border into Egypt, then take the name of Allah and move forward. May this messenger of Hazrat Umar become immortal. Muslims have already reached Egypt, had crossed the border, but there is another angle of the story as well. Hazrat Umar's messenger reached Amr bin Az. Muslims did not reach Egypt, but just a short distance from the Egyptian border. We're at a distance, but as Amr binus. It was good to see Hazrat Umar. I somehow understood what was written in this letter. He immediately opened the letter. No, instead I put this messenger first. He was fed and told to rest. As soon as the Muslims crossed this border, Army Chief Amr bin Az was appointed Caliph Omar. He opened the letter and said that it is too late now, we have to move on. We have to grow with this very fast with regard to the entire Muslim army. Move on from eventually conquering all these territories. Fighting in front of the capital of Egypt. Ready stood in what is now known as Cairo, and this was no ordinary city. The capital of Egypt, world's most powerful cities ever. It was occupied by the Romans for the last 600 years. It was the rule of the empire, and no one could control the city. The Muslim army could not take it directly. Come and pitch your tents before this city. Seeing this, he was fully prepared for battle. The Romans also handed over their entire army to the Muslims, in front of which children and women were standing. The elders were all involved in doing this, as fear should settle in the hearts of Muslims. But who were they threatening the Muslims? Don't think Amr bin says that big. Seeing the army, he sent one of his messengers to them, and explained to him, well, what you are. I have to say that this messenger went straight to everyone. He said in front of Rumi that you people also know. Yes, we just told you who we are. The king has badly defeated Hari yesterday, so now what harm will you do us there? Hearing this, Everyone was surprised except the leaders there. Cyrus said it was fine with him. Amarbands attacked Egypt with all his might. Attacked the capital but to no avail. This did not happen as the army was only 4,000 strong. It is impossible to conquer the capital of Egypt together. So Muslims stayed here for the next 7 months. Like in our camps in front of this city remained seated, and finally Army Chief Amarban, as I also understood that now is the time. Help should be sought from Caliph Umar in Medina. This was already known to Hazrat Umar. Amr ibn As takes Egypt very lightly. And it definitely needs more troops. If necessary, he immediately sent an army of 12,000. Sent to Egypt, and the chief of this army to a great companion Zubair bin Awam. Hazrat Umar Zubair, R.A., made it respected him so much that he who became caliph after his death. One of the people, Zubair bin Awam, also nominated, which we will discuss later if you explain and subscribe now. The new army also came to Egypt with Amr bin As. And these two forces together absolutely attacking Khalid bin Walid style. The Roman army made a new plan the next day. Came out of their fort, and both the armies united came face to face with each other, and the war began. After a short war, suddenly Muslims started retreating from the battle and slowly came so far back from the battlefield that it seemed that now Muslims have finally lost this war. Will go, but exactly at this time Muslims another army came after the Roman army. Seeing this, Amr bin As stood up again. This is how Muslims ordered the attack, surrounded the Roman army from all sides and then crushed them. But after all this, even after this, Muslims should not enter this city. Maybe one day Zubair bin Awam Raziallah Ta'ala anhu got fed up and wrote a very bold, took the decision, and only a few of my friends together inside this city in the dark of night entered and went straight to the Muslims. Seeing this, the gates were opened, and all the Muslims were the army entered the capital of Egypt, and after conquering the city and appointing its governor started searching, but it was too late. Governor first most powerful in Egypt except this city. The city had fled towards Alexandria. Now the governor had run away, but his heart, I was so afraid of Muslims that as soon as he ran away from here, he turned towards the Muslims. Sent a letter that now I am all done to surrender Egypt to Hazrat Omar and ready for Governor Amr bin As. This request was completely rejected because they knew that Muslims, the war is not with this governor but with the Roman Empire. Army Chief Amr bin As to the king, if this offer of Egypt's surrender is accepted, then but when the emperor of the Roman Empire was defeated, Achilles came to know about the surrender of its governor. If anything, he would be very angry at this arrogance of the governor. I got angry that what is his status? Surrender all of Egypt without asking me. After which he sent the entire Roman army, sent message to leave aside governor's words and for the last war with the Muslims get ready. Army Chief of Muslims Amr bin As also understood that now the Roman Empire, the king, is ready to fight till his last breath, so he also sent his army ordered to move towards Alexandria. Now here is a very interesting story. Fustat, that's when Muslims are packing their bags and were packing their tents. Amr bin As Rajallah anhu bapna tent, when he went to tie it, he saw that a pigeon made its way inside their tent. The nest has been built, and along with that pigeon, even when he was a child, now Amr bin As has given birth to this pigeon. This tent is here to save the house of this tent is very important. Because in future every Muslim let this tent stay here for a sign and started settling around this tent. Now in Arabic tent is called fast, and later on, because of this pigeon's tent, the capital of Egypt was named Fust, which till today it is the capital of Egypt, and it is called Cairo. It is called. Let's come back to the story. Shortly after romance, Muslims also reached near the city, and seeing this city absolutely amazed, because Alexandria named after Alexander the Great, Alexandria, but there was a very big city built in Hazrat Umar, a city larger than this during his entire caliphate. Damak and Madan, who had never attacked the Muslims, were much bigger than the city. Reached here and decided to conquer this city. Tried a lot, but all the Muslims, the attempts continued to fail, and in the next 6 Muslims guarded the gates of this city for months. Sitting there completely helpless, and the Muslims' Roman emperor, to further break the morale of, he sent a huge army to fight against the Muslims. Now finally it seemed that Caliph Omar never conquered Egypt will be able to do this, and the army of Muslims from here she will go back disappointed. But suddenly, there was a big twist here and all situation changed completely. Roman Empire. Suddenly the great Roman Empire in Tambul, the capital of the great Roman Empire, the last powerful king, died for 30 years. Died after the rule of Roman new king, neither did the son come and take over the throne of his father. The Roman Empire was greatly influenced by the young emperor. There were expectations that this would definitely come from the Muslims. Will take away or lost strength, but only after being on the throne for a few days. This king, the sleeping mother, killed it and gave it to her son. Placed on the throne of the Roman Empire. But seeing this, the generals and people of the Roman Empire got very angry, after which, but in the Roman Empire there was a huge civil war started, after which the army which Heraclius Nene to fight the Muslims had sent it. He was forced to return at civil war so big that we can only see each other started killing, but when the situation got under control, if there is a new one on the throne of the Roman Empire, the king was sitting, but the issue was that the age of this new king is only 11 years. Now you tell me, when an 11-year-old, if the boar stands in front of Caliph Umar, what will happen to him? Caliph Umar Razal, this lock of the Roman Empire from Tala and Homadina, were watching the civil war very carefully, and they had understood that to conquer Egypt, this is the best time. So he immediately wrote a letter in Medina and sent it to his messenger, ordered this letter at full speed reach Army Chief Amar Binus in Egypt. This messenger is working day and night very fast. As soon as Amar Binus reached Egypt, opened the letter, Hazrat Umar gave clear order. It was given that Emir would immediately destroy all the Muslims. By collecting this letter of mine to the army at one place, read out in front of everyone. Army Chief Amar Binus did exactly the same, and the Muslims, Hazrat gathered his entire army in front of him. Opened Umar's letter, and O Muslims, what has happened to you? You have been fighting for the last 2 years until now. Egypt could not conquer me. There is a danger that you will disobey the messenger of Allah and the Quran. You have forgotten the methods mentioned, and just like our enemies of the world, you are lost in love. Remember, Allah never helps such a community. So now I come to strengthen your hearts, sending a new army towards you. Now I am fed up with these old antics of mine. Come and get up, fix your horses, take out your swords, and have one last battle with the Romans. Ready to fight, go, so that the Muslims will conquer Egypt forever. Hazrat could bring Islam under control. After reading this letter of Omar, Muslims, the spirit of the army was so great that they took up their swords and marched towards Alexandria. The city was so attacked that the Romans became completely helpless in front of, and walls, gates everywhere except towers started running away, and Muslims finally came to the city. When Governor Cyrus entered here, when he saw everything with his own eyes, he understood that an 11-year-old boy faces Caliph Omar. I can never fight anymore. There is no use with this. He picked up the pen and told the whole of Egypt about Hazrat Umar surrendered to the caliphate, and thus Egypt, the land of foreigners and Muslims, Amar Binus came under control and conquered Egypt. First thing after doing is a messenger quickly sent towards Hazrat Umar so that he could give them the news of Egypt's victory. The messenger reached Medina at full speed and Hazrat towards the Prophet's mosque instead of Umar's house. When Hazrat Umar came to know about this, he went straight towards Masjid Nabawi, and there the messenger told Hazrat Umar about the conquest of Egypt. On hearing this, Hazrat Umar talked about the land, but fell down and prostrated, thanked Allah, paid and collected the whole of Medina, and now tell the story of Egypt's victory. After this, Hazrat Umar told that messenger, called and asked if you would rather come to my house. Why did the messenger go towards Masjid Nabawi? Said, I thought you were sleeping. Hazrat Umar replied to him that if the caliph, if you sleep during the day, then who is such a big caliphate? Now it will run in the hands of Amar without hope. Along W. There is another very powerful, the strength is the Roman navy, because here the Roman navy, the army, was the biggest port of the empire. Chief Amr bin As immediately asked Caliph Umar about his, asked for permission that now is the time to Muslims build their first navy, but Hazrat Umar refused to do so because if seen, Arabs have always remained in the desert, and they had no knowledge of seas and boats, had no experience, and compared to them Romans were the champions of all this. Then Hazrat Umar knew that maybe in the oceans we can't compete with Romans, and or if the entire army sinks then the immortal navy will be destroyed. Abandon the idea and move towards Africa, and very fast Libya, Ethiopia rather. Hazrat Umar finally reached Algeria, sent a letter saying stop opposing us. Now if it has spread too much then more than this, immortal is not allowed to go further, after which returned with the entire army of Muslims without hope towards its new capital Fustat. Egypt came, and there he met something very strange, met people who told him that think carefully before getting too happy. Know that every year the water of river Nile completely dry and then shed again. The only way we know is every year whenever the water of this river dries up, we this river throw a young virgin girl in, and only after this girl's sacrifice, when the river water starts flowing again, then you Muslims will also have to do the same. Was surprised to hear what crazy people these are, but after some time it is exactly the same, and the water of river Nile almost dried up, which made the Muslims feel a little nervous that this river is really drying up, and eventually the water in the river decreased so much that some people even started wondering whether we should also like this to drain the river water. Sacrifice must be made after seeing all this to become immortal. Bin As sent a letter to Hazrat Umar that now you decide what we should do. As soon as Hazrat Umar read this letter, he said that what is it that we came into this world because break all these old customs of the world. Immediately Hazrat Umar sent a letter and said to throw this letter in the Nile River, go, in which it was written, O blue water, if you flowing as per its wish for thousands of years till today, if yes, then stop, we don't need you. But if you flow with the will of Allah, so we pray to the same Allah that release your water again, of which only a few after a long time, the water of river Nile is even fresher than before. It started flowing more. Thus Hazrat Umar was just one, not the king, but in front of the whole world a new regime was being established, and during his period there was such a system of justice that one day the army Omar Justice Chief Amr bin As's son conquered Egypt after having a common Egyptian assured, hit with sticks on such a matter, and to show this tribe that now we are your king and you are our slave. This Egyptian, he is there, couldn't say anything, but he always said, Hazrat, I had heard a lot about Omar's justice. He went straight from Egypt to Medina, and he went and prostrated himself in front of Hazrat Umar. Hearing this complaint of oppression, Hazrat Umar felt very sad, and they told you to sit here and immediately cover a letter sent towards Amr bin As and ordered him that with his son Muhammad bin Amr come towards Medina like these two fathers. And when the son reached Medina, he saw that everyone is sitting with Hazrat Umar, and together even that Egyptian. Caliph Omar gave my stick to the Egyptian in front and said that the son of army chief Amr bin As kill in exactly the same way as you kill your son. Later Caliph Omar said to that Egyptian that with this stick his father will become immortal without hope. Hit me on the head too, because this father's posts because of which his son killed you. That Egyptian did not kill Amr bin As killed, but Hazrat Umar told Amr that you, since when did people start being enslaved when their mothers have created them free? This is why, because of tremendous justice. Now Hazrat Umar had become the most powerful leader in the world, but immediately after conquering Egypt, the king of the empire gathered a large army absolutely to take revenge from Muslims. Was ready. Like, share and subscribe.